Hello and welcome to another episode of Another Cool Rock Podcast, a podcast with conversations about rock and roll with people who rock. I'm your host, Steve Roth, and we know you have a lot of podcast choices at your fingertips, so thank you for checking this little podcast out. One of my goals in doing this podcast is to help spread the word about cool bands and artists that really move me at a time when it's increasingly difficult for bands and artists to get their music and their stories out there. So it's a great irony that at a time when we have such immediate access to more music than ever before, it's often very hard to find new music and artists. Back in the day, and here in my fifth decade on the planet, that's the late 70s, 80s, and into the 90s, it often seemed like there were limited outlets to find new music. If you had a radio station that didn't just play older stuff, there was MTV, a good record store, and assorted rock magazines. You were able to find out about a lot of new bands and artists if you were looking for that, and I sure was, and I still am. Now today there's still places to find something new, and one can argue that there's less places, I suppose, but so much more music out there that you can be overwhelmed by so much from social media, YouTube, and your digital music providers, Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, etc. And not just music, but everything, all the content from all the quote-unquote content providers coming at you. But with the digital music outlets, you're more or less often reliant on their algorithms to put something cool in front of you, unless you're really into finding playlists, let's say. I say more or less because for discovery to happen more often, you have to really have that desire to find new music and look for it so those algorithms can start doing their thing. And if you never look for something new, that ain't going to happen. So ultimately, it's up to you. For me, it's about discovery, whether that's digging through the racks at a local record store or diving into Spotify's New Release Friday playlist or various newsletters I subscribe to. Whether it's new music from old bands or something from a band I never heard of, they might be familiar to many, but they are new to me, and I love finding something that really gets me excited, which is a great segue to this episode's guest. For those of you who are here for the same reason that I am, to dig something by someone you've never heard before, let me introduce to you an amazing power pop band, the Genuine Fakes, from Sweden, and this episode's guest, their vocalist, guitarist, and primary songwriter, Johan Bergqvist. The Genuine Fakes are an amazing power pop band. I just said that, right? I'm repeating myself because I'm running out of superlatives here. And like so many of my power pop favorites, as soon as I read that their influences include Fountains of Wayne, Jellyfish, the Posies, and my all-time favorite band of all time, Cheap Trick, I just had to check them out. While they are new to me, and presumably to most folks listening to this, the band first formed in 2005 and have recently released their third full-length album entitled 3, that's the number 3, and this album is absolutely, positively incredible. It's 12 songs of amazing, there it is, amazing. It's 12 songs of tremendous, fantastic, terrific, hook-laden power pop, bright guitars, big melodies, fun and introspective lyrics. I can easily go overboard without a life raft talking about their music. So it was a lot of fun talking with Johan about his songwriting, their music, how this album came together, how it was released, and a lot more. So after you check this interview out, please immediately check out the Genuine Fakes. You can get the full CD via their label, Cool Cat Music. There's links in the show notes. Or go to your favorite digital music provider or Bandcamp where all the songs that are on the album are available digitally in 3 4-song EPs called Extended Play Volumes 1, 2, and 3. And yes, that's a novel way to release the music, and Johan and I talk about that in depth. All right, let's get to it. Thank you for giving Another Cool Rock Podcast a chance. And as always, be good to yourself and be good to other people. Take care. Hey, Johan, thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. I just want to first off say right up at the top, I've recently discovered the Genuine Fakes, and I'm so glad I did because I absolutely love your new album, 3. We'll talk all about that. And I absolutely am just in love with every track I've heard on this. I've been playing the album. It's been in my heavy rotation, I guess you could say. So, and musically, it's right up my power pop alley. I wanted to first start. You guys formed back in 2005. So I'm sure for a lot of people, Genuine Fakes might be a new band, but you guys have been working and been around for a while out of Sweden, correct?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I just realized that it's been 20 years since we started.
Wow.
But we released our first album in 2010, and then life happens, and we didn't release our second album until 2017, I believe, or 18, somewhere around there. And then there's been a pandemic and all this crazy stuff happening in the world, and we've been just doing it at our own pace, and the years they they go by at
Yeah.
a really quick pace. But
Yeah.
yeah, we've been around for a long time, and we still, we do what we love doing.
Awesome. So I mentioned power pop. Your bio mentions power pop. It's possibly my favorite genre of music. When I saw some of the influences, when I read about you guys, different things, I saw Fountains of Wayne, who I love, Jellyfish, the Posies, Cheap Trick is my all-time favorite band of all time. So as soon as I saw that, I knew this would be my immediate instinctive thought for years now. Whenever I see a band's influences, I immediately go, I have to check them out as soon as possible. So knowing all that, what other, say, influences that you and the other members might bring to the band musically? If there's maybe some surprising things in your record collection, or maybe people might not catch up necessarily to different things in the music that might be more evident to you guys.
That's a good question. I think I sort of discovered power pop and indie rock sort of via the Seattle scene because I grew up like really I was heavily into the whole like grunge thing and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and Alice in Chains and all that stuff. And what I liked about it was that they had like really strong choruses, oftentimes, really great melodies. And through that scene, I discovered the Posies, which they didn't really fit into the Seattle sound.
Right.
And so I was like, oh, this is really interesting because I was a big fan of the Beatles and 60s music as well. And this was sort of like a mixture of very melodic pop, but it was heavy at the same time, and I was really intrigued. This was back in when I was in high school, late 90s. And I'd obviously been, listening a bit to Weezer, that whole indie college rock scene a little bit, and couldn't really place that into. It was alternative, but at the same time, it wasn't grunge at all. And so that kind of opened my eyes a bit more to okay, what is this, and what were they influenced by and stuff. So that's how I sort of started discovering Jellyfish and uh, Big Star,
Oh, right.
all that sort of stuff. And I just thought this is just what I want to do. This type of music. This is exactly up my alley. But I hadn't really stumbled across power pop until then. So it was through Pearl Jam, which is kind of weird in a sense, I guess.
Yeah, I guess the similarities are one, some very cool, tasty, and crunchy guitars, of which you guys definitely have. There's a high energy to your songs. That's one of the main things I love about the songs. That where one, the production just sounds so bright and just so comes right out at your speakers. And also, I think the other similarity might be with Pearl Jam and the best of those grunge bands that you're right, they really did. They had great hooks. They wrote great choruses. I mean, if you heard Alive, Jeremy, things like
Exactly.
that, they stuck in your head right away. And there
They
was
did.
also musicianship and cool production and great guitars, but really it comes down to the songs. And for me, the best songs are the ones that hit me right away. And I don't have the attention span to go, to listen to 20-minute jams or progressive and jam bands are great. I appreciate the musicianship, but my ADHD and growing up as a kid, it was about just those memorable choruses and those hooks that stop you in your tracks. And you guys, that is what you guys have in spades.
Well, thanks. Appreciate that. And I mean, also there was I'm not sure if you're aware, but there was a big indie pop movement in Sweden in the mid '90s. So there were like some really strong chorus oriented pop bands emerging from Sweden at that time when I was in like junior high. But I
Hmm.
wasn't really into that sort of thing then because I thought it was a bit lame compared to grunge. It wasn't cool enough. but I started appreciating it more after discovering the Posies and getting more into like American pop, indie pop, and alternative pop, if you will. Then I sort of rediscovered that whole Swedish swindy scene. As
Swindy, I like that.
Yeah, I love that phrase as well. I can't take credit for it, unfortunately. But there were some really cool bands called like Popsicle was a major influence for me. And also a band called the Wannadies. They had a pretty big hit here in Europe called "You and Me" song, which I'm not sure if it's that well known in North America, but it's still quite a big hit here. 30 years later.
I got some homework to do. I got some other things to look up.
I'll send you a list.
Oh, please, thank you. Yeah, I'd love to check all that out. In fact, when I read your bio, I made a mental note, and I hadn't had a chance to yet, but I saw Popsicle, and I thought that has to be, Popsicle was in the same sentence with Posies and Fountain Wayne, and I just thought, I got to check those guys out, because if they're in that same list, I'm probably going to dig it. So the new album is called 3, and it had a real you guys took a very interesting, and I also thought effective journey as far as getting this album to the full album stage with a number of EPs prior to this.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of strange how that came about, because we didn't really have a plan. It was just the pandemic happened, and we were sort of isolated, and we decided to keep the band going and continue seeing each other if we were all, well, didn't have any symptoms. That was like the only to sort of keep some sense of normalcy in this whole really weird situation the world was in, right?
Sure.
And it seemed like too big of an undertaking to make a full record. So we decided to, write a few songs at a time, record them, see if they made sense as an EP, and we put that out and just went on with the next thing. And then we just realized that, okay, in the end, it turned out to be a pretty damn good album, actually. And we're a trio. We released 3 EPs, and it's the 3rd album, so 3 seemed apt.
Yeah, and I love it. What I wanted to ask was the writing, recording, releasing, was that kind of sequential, if you will? So you put out, the album is 12 songs. You put out prior to this, over from like 2021 on, 3 4-song EPs. So pardon my confusion if so, because I saw that the first one was it volume 2 that was released, then 1, then 3. So
2, 3, and then 1, actually.
2, 3, then 1. Sorry, yes, okay. So,
no, but what happened there was,
as far as what they were titled,
exactly, because we felt that I had some sort of idea that, okay, we're gonna do a series of EPs, but we didn't know how many we were gonna put out. But it felt like the first one, when we had finished those 4 songs, it didn't feel like a volume 1 for some reason. It was like, this feels like the middle section of an album. So we felt that, okay, it would be pretty funny if we just called it volume 2 and just to mess with people. But this
is really interesting to me, because my question was that, was it you wrote and recorded 4 songs and said, okay, we're going to release this, then the next 4 songs, but you just said that the first batch of songs felt like the middle of an album.
Yeah.
I love that. That is, and which is why it was called volume. The first 2. One was 2. Got it. Okay. Wow. Yeah. That is really cool. I just love that thinking.
Yeah. And then
it sounds very organic. Pardon the interruption.
Yeah, because that's the way it happened. And I mean, it wasn't at all calculated, even though it might seem like a smart PR trick or something. But we did the next batch of songs, and I just felt that we had a really long song that felt like an album closer. So we felt like, okay, this is obviously volume 3 then. So then when we went back in again, okay, all that's left now to complete the quote-unquote album was to do like a really strong opener EP. So that I set out to do that and write those songs for that purpose, because by that time it felt like, okay, maybe somebody would like to release this in physical form as an album. Then it should be like a cohesive whole, in some way. So it turned out, even though it wasn't planned, it turned out really well. You know, sometimes
Right.
we just go with the flow, and it just ended up making sense. And we kept the sequence from the EPs on the album.
Wow. I really dig that because, well, it makes sense when you mention that really long song. That's now track 12 on the full album, We're All I Need, and that's nearly 9 minutes long. And
Yeah.
hearing your thinking process, I can't imagine that being anywhere else but the album closer.
Right. Exactly.
That makes total sense. A couple of things that really stood out to me on the album was, just like I mentioned, the overall song, the songs, the guitar playing, and a couple of songs that really jumped out at me. And one, Unhand Me, is just like a great opener. I totally understand how that ends up the opener. The way the album just sequences, track 1, track 2, track 3 is kind of a downshift, but again, a great hook. It's the rhythm section is really cool too. There's a bit of an aggressiveness there, but I wouldn't call it in some of the songs. But I wouldn't necessarily call it, metal, let's say. But there's some oomph to the playing there, especially with your drummer.
Yeah. I guess the approach to our sound is that the attitude is that we're a rock band that plays pop songs.
I love that. That's perfect. I had a couple other things I want to ask you about mention about the songs, but I also would be remiss if I didn't tell you this, that the way you release this for EPs, I found really smart, and it's something that I used to recommend to people back in previous jobs on how to do this. If I had discovered you guys, let's say in 2021, I would have been thrilled that, wow, I got an EP, and then a year later to get more music. I mean, I don't think any band should go, if you're an active band and you're writing and recording, should go 5 years between albums and songs. You want to keep this is in a world where we have so much information and entertainment at our fingertips at all times. How do you cut through that and stay just from a purely commercial sense sort of view? I mean, how do you maintain that fan base, and how do you grow that fan base without giving people what they love from you in the first place, and doing that more often? So I love that idea.
You're absolutely right, and that was part of the discussion as well, because we realized since the situation was so unclear, we didn't know how much we were gonna. I mean, when can we do our next gig? The whole world was closed down, so we figured it was smarter to release more frequently, a few songs at a time, because, like I said, between the first and the second album, we had like a 7-year gap or something.
Sure.
And that was far too long. But it was, because reasons, right? Things happen. And this was a way to sort of contain the effort, and because, we all have full-time jobs outside of, we don't live off of this. So we do all this in our spare time, and making a full album is a huge commitment time-wise when you have families and full-time jobs. So it was a way for us to stay, what do you call it? I would
think, well, obviously it keeps you very active, but I'm wondering also if it kind of maybe lessens the pressure a little bit, right? Because let's say you've got a recording date in mind when you're going to, when you say, okay, we're going to go in the studio, we're going to start recording this now, and we've got this amount of time to knock out 12 songs. Yeah. That's a lot of pressure there. And especially when the clock is ticking and you got, and of course, none of this happens for free, right? So, you obviously you got to be very well rehearsed and get into the studio and be very efficient. But if you're, does that even maybe limit your creativity? Because you're going in there with those songs that you have that you got to get done in that certain amount of time.
Yeah, for sure. There is definitely pressure when you have to like rent a studio and all of that, and make sure that, okay, we got to bring our top game to this session. The good thing for us is that we're in the situation where just before the pandemic, we got ourselves a new rehearsal space that we managed to rebuild into a recording studio also. So we actually have our own place now to do all this. And I do all the mixing. I'm sitting in my home studio now in my house where I do the mixing myself. So it's more a matter of actually finding the time to do this, to do these things than actually affording at this point. But it was definitely a thing back in the day where there was like when we started out and for the first 10 years of our career, there was a lot of pressure involved because we didn't get to do it like twice, redo things. It was too expensive.
Well, I'm sure there's a benefit too to having that accessibility to your own studio. So if there's something cooking in your head right away, it's not about just taking the acoustic guitar and recording a voice memo. Let's say, yeah, maybe it starts out that way. And I want to hear more about your process. But if you've got something really fully realized and you get together with the other guys, you can go in there and go, hey, let's put this down, let's do this, and here's where this can go.
Yeah,
it's obviously very immediate.
Yeah, it is. It is. And that helps a lot. And also, it's not the end of the world if the first version of the song doesn't turn out great. We can just, all right, let's get back to this in a while and see what happens.
Right. So you're the primary songwriter.
Yeah.
Correct? So with your process, I guess for lack of a better word, when do you figure out when it's time to bring to the other guys in the band, or is it very more kind of evolutionary? Is it collaborative, or are you bringing in like, I've got this, I got verse first, I got the chorus, here's the bridge, I got the lyrics, or does it vary from song to song and it happens as it happens?
Well, I guess it's different in different projects, but in this particular project, I usually come with the full song figured out with just guitar and vocals. I have all the lyrics, I have all the parts, I have verse, bridge, chorus. But then I bring it to the band, we start rehearsing it, and then everybody comes with input on the arrangement. So we all do that last creative part of the process together before actually going into recording it. And a lot of stuff changes during the recording process as well. I mean, something that we thought felt good as we were rehearsing it, maybe it didn't work out and we had to, change things up. But it's very collaborative after I brought the song to them, so to speak.
I love that. And it sounds like it's a lot of fun. And I'm always fascinated how songs are written and built. And especially where you come in and maybe there's a part that another band member might suggest that didn't occur to you, but works completely. Or, it's always interesting to me how songwriters might file something away for future use, right? It's like, well, maybe there was a bridge that worked on one song, but didn't really work out. But you know what? This could work here. And if maybe we do a key change or something or modulate here, and this fits perfect here. And it's almost that ethos of, can we not necessarily recycle, but maybe reuse and reinterpret something. So
definitely. And there were a couple of songs on this album that I had written like over 20 years ago, like the start of it. And then I brought it out from the archive and said, well, maybe we can make this into a genuine fake song. And so that's what we did with Two Fine Lovers, for instance. And also She was an old song that it didn't change a lot, but the whole ending was when it just keeps going and going. That wasn't there. That was something that evolved from our rehearsals. But I also, like for the first record, we wrote a lot in the rehearsal space together. But for the second album, I made really elaborate demos with drums and bass and keyboards and all the vocal parts, everything, but just because I wanted to be efficient and put something out quickly after the first album. And then I had kids, twins, and life happened, right? And but I realized then when we actually started recording the album, the other guys were too colored by what I had already done in the demos. So now I was I made sure that I only had done my guitar part and the lead vocals and sent those demos to the guys before we went into rehearsal, because I really wanted them to bring their own creative input, like the bass parts and the drum parts and the harmonies. So I didn't like serve it all on a silver platter, because that makes it also that they didn't want to mess with it too much, if you know what I mean. They respected the original vision too much, in my opinion. And it was like, and I told them, well, this is just an idea. You don't have to do it that way. But then the bass part ended up pretty much the same way as I had done it in the demo anyway. So it's more fun now, I think, that I get more, they feel more free, and I get more ideas that I wouldn't have thought of myself.
That's really cool. Well, the end results are stellar, as I mentioned a couple times, and just a couple of the songs that really stood out to me that I absolutely loved. We talked about the first couple tracks, but there was a couple songs that hit me. Almost all the songs hit me right away, but then there was some where I went back and listened to the third or fourth time that just really connected with me in lyrically, especially because I don't always pay attention to the lyrics right away. I mean, I could be singing along to a favorite song for years and then years later go, oh, that's what they meant, but a couple of songs that really hit me lyrically as well was She, and most especially Another Way. There's something really beautiful, but almost dark, yet there's a lightness to the music in Another Way, if that makes any sense at all.
It does make sense. And this is something, it's funny that you mentioned that, because that's one of the things that I really, really love about Popsicle. That they always had a knack for writing like pretty melancholy lyrics, but the music in itself is like, it has a hopeful tone to it and almost happy. But when you like listen to the lyrics, it can be pretty dark sometimes. But because the music is pop and it's in major key and stuff like that, it brings it's an interesting contrast, and that's what I try to achieve with a lot of these songs as well. That contrast between, I mean, even if a lyric can be sort of, things are tough and it's difficult and life is a bitch and all of that, but how you put the music to that affects how you interpret the lyric. So I want there to be some sort of, I want people to feel better after having heard a Genuine Fake song. Let's put it that way.
Right. That's a good segue to the song that jumped out at me most immediately. And it's a song that I would dub an instant mood enhancer. It just puts me absolutely in a better mood. And this is one where I can't tell you fully what the lyrics mean, but this is yet. But The Receiver.
Right.
If I don't want to meet the person who's not moved after hearing that song, because if you're not in a better mood after listening to that song, you need to seek help. That song is fucking amazing. I can't tell you how much I love that song. I sent that to my wife. I sent that to like 3 other people, and it just makes me happy. It's got this driving, I loved it. It's a great song to drive to. I can't go on enough about that song. That one was one of the ones that first stood out to me. And it reminds me, one of the first things, it did remind me a little bit of the Foo Fighters.
Right, yeah.
Just a little bit.
That makes sense.
Yeah. There's that brightness, like you mentioned, right? But yeah, tell me a little bit about that song, because that has been my number one favorite.
Well, I'm glad you picked up on that reference, because that was exactly what I felt as I was writing, and I was like, okay, this is an alternative anthem, sort of like Foo Fighters song. That's the way I felt, and it just struck me how Dave Grohl, he has a way of writing his lyrics that are kind of sort of he can be pretty deep, but it's also got this carefree quality to them sometimes. And I just decided to make this into one of those escape songs, that you just get in the car and you leave your troubles behind, and look forward. Great things are gonna happen one way or another. Let's not worry too much about the past. And I just wanted to have that feeling in the song. When you listen to it, I wanted people to feel like, I want to get into the car and get the fuck out of here. And you go on adventures. Like,
sure.
That's the feeling that I get when I'm about to go on tour, right? You get into the bus and you drive, and you have no idea what's going to happen, but it's a good feeling, and you leave your worries behind for a while. They're going to be there when you get home, but you can forget about them for a while.
It reminds me kind of, I guess, an ethos I try to remind myself of, and that is life is always better when you have things to look forward to. They don't have to be big things. They could be little tiny things. Hey, I'm looking forward to driving to work today because I'm going to listen to that podcast, or I'm going to listen to the Genuine Fakes, or, I can't, or looking forward to that big family gathering. But the more things you have to look forward to, you can it helps you stay present and leave the past behind, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah. People have a tendency to dwell too much on the past. And maybe think too much about the future as well. Being in the now, that's something that I'm really trying to do as much as I can.
Oh, same here.
Because, that's all you know, really.
Right.
All you have is now. So
And it's, and it's super easy. And I've always kind of battled this myself to get hung up on regrets and things that I didn't do or didn't do right in the past. You're sitting in the past, and then to be anxious and nervous or worried about what may or may not happen in the future. And then you lose sight of what's going on right around you, being present, things to look forward to, right? The things that make you happy in this moment, because that portion is the only part you can really control. And even that, sometimes you don't have too much control about it. And that's where you find the beauty in things.
exactly.
Not
That's
to
right.
get far too deep here on another cool rock podcast, but but yeah. So the album's out. The album just came out, and I've got links in the show notes. And make sure everybody knows it. You can get it. You can get it in North America on the Cool Cat label on CD, and
Right.
the EPs are available digitally. And for the rest of the world, the album's available. Did I get all that right? The album is available digitally too, and it just it just came
should
out
be
the end
out
of April.
everywhere.
Yeah.
We have a European release through Rock Indiana, also a Spanish label. If people want to save some money on postage in Europe, so it's only out on CD, or only. I mean, it gets a physical release these days. I'm just happy it's there, and you can hold it in your hand.
Yeah, and I love that. I mean, I want to read credits and see a cover, and there's still to me, I absolutely love. I go to the record store, I find what I'm looking for, I get a CD or vinyl, but I get the CD, and then the first thing I'm doing, I'm sitting in my car in the parking lot and I'm opening it up because I still have a CD player in my car and I want to hear it. I'm not going to wait till I get home. So
You and me both.
yeah. So there's some things that those tangible things that still make you happy. So the album's available everywhere now. As far as plans to shows, touring wise, I'm sure getting to North America is probably one of the hardest things to do. But as far as where you guys are at and what do you have upcoming?
Well, right now we're actually focused on a side project
Oh.
together with. I've been talking about Popsicle, but one of our heroes, Frederick, who was one of the singers of Popsicle, he asked us to help him out with a new project. So we've got a new band called The While. I'll send you some links.
Yeah.
We've released a few singles and an EP, and the full album is recorded and ready. So we're gonna release that pretty soon. So we actually we're on a bit of a hiatus with the Genuine Fakes for the first
Okay.
time in 20 years, and doing this for a while now. So we'll see what happens.
You got me very curious, so I will check out Popsicle, and yeah, send me links. I want to check out The Wild too, and I love the fact that I mean, regardless, you're obviously very creative, and you don't wait to put things out. So
Why
you know,
wait?
whether it's
Live in the now.
yeah, I mean, I hope more music from the Genuine Fakes is obviously the record is brand new, but looking ahead a little bit. If there's songs that work for Genuine Fakes, I hope you put that out, call them B-sides,
course.
whatever you want to call it. And then we got The Wild to look forward to as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're not gonna stop. We're doing the music because we need to do it. I mean, we're doing it for our own sake, and we just we figure that if we like the songs, odds are that some other people will too. And we're super happy that this album's been so well received. Really psyched about that. So we're definitely gonna continue making music for sure.
That's great. It lends to mind, and that's how I found more about the album, is that there's a really tight-knit, really good power pop community out there between the different blogs and podcasts. And I mean, back in the day before there was podcasts, some of those early websites were how I found out about music, and new message boards. I mean, I'm on Reddit's power pop subreddit often. I discover new things there. So, I mean, that's one of the cool things about, and I know other genres have that too, but power pop in particular is the recommendations there usually won't steer you wrong. So I'll be helping to recommend the Genuine Fakes. That's for sure. I've already been doing that.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
So, well, cool. So we got the Genuine Fakes, The While up ahead, and I am going to be enjoying this will be one of my top summer albums for sure. So
That's great. Awesome.
Johan, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
I really enjoyed this and absolutely love the album and love the music.
Thanks very much.
Cheers.
Have a great summer.
Yeah.